Siguro ho, marami nang gustong magtanong. No? Napakainit po ng mga binigay na insights ng ating mga speakers this morning. So, we now open the floor for the open forum. Meron mong mic doon. And please state your name first before, because we are recording the proceedings, I believe. Okay?
Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat, lalo na po sa ating Pangulo, si Pae po, ng ating universidad. Ako po si Lea Hernandez, alumnus po ako ng College of BA at saka Public Ad. Mahilig po ako mag-aral kaya halos lahat ng kaulahiran dito sa universidad. Ako po nag-enroll. Sa Philippine Studies din po, nag-aaral ako, naging Pangulo ako na mag-aaral doon, samahan ng mag-aaral. At ako po nag-aaral din sa Mascom, yung elective ko sa Masteral, at saka sa Urban Planning. Mahal na mahal ko po ang UP. At ang aking pong may bahay ay taga-UP din. Ngayon po, ako po ay recipient ng yung unang lahi. Alam naman natin kung ano yun. Sa UP College of Law. Mga 1972 po, nung nagbukas ang ating universidad na magbigay ng examination sa probinsya. Ang amin pong testing center ay ang Davao City High School. Ako po ay tubong Davao at ako po ay natutuwa na nabanggit yung mga pangangailangan ng UP Mindanao. Kasi po, yan po ang universidad ng atin na meron tayong campus para po sa mga estudyante sa iba't ibang lalawigan ng Mindanao. At naalala ko po, hindi po ako nag-review sa formal na gaya ng ginagawa ngayon na 3,000 yata ang tuition fee. Ang ginawa ko po, kumuha ako ng volume ng mga Reader's Digest. At nandun po sa Reader's Digest yung 10 katanungan ng yung word meaning. At doon sa word meaning, may derivative doon ng mga Latin words. Kung yan ay vox populi, voice of the people. Di ba? Latin. Kaya halos lahat ng mga English words, nakatulong po yun. At tama po yung nabanggit kanina na ang mga public schools ngayon ay hirap. At napapansin ko nga na halos lahat ng mga estudyante ay galing sa pribadong sektor. At yung mga Philippine, sabihin natin ng mga science schools, ay yun din po ang may kaya. Dahil lang hindi po biro mag-aral sa science school, dahil lang po sa mga requirements. Ang akin lang pong concern ay, ang UP po ay gumagawa ng mga katanungan para makuha ang mga magagaling na estudyante para sa ating universidad. Pero ang ating pong concern, ano po ang mangyayari sa ating mga graduates? Sana po doon sa mga katanungan, isama po natin ang napaka-importanting tanong kung sila ba ay sila ba ay handang magsilbi sa ating bayan. Dahil lang po, kung yan ay mga galing sa pribadong sektor at yan ay nakapagtapos, nakakuha ng diploma sa Universidad ng Pilipinas, baka marami po sa kanila ay magiging manggagawa ng pribadong sektor. Ilan po ang ating mga alumni na handang magsilbi sa bayan. Hindi lamang sa bayan, kundi sa sarili nilang lungsod o lalawigan ng pinanggalingan nila. Sana po maliwanag na kung tayo ay papasok sa Universidad ng Pilipinas, ang tumutulong sa atin ay Filipino people. Kung tayo nag-aaral ng 4 na taon, makano ang tulong na binibigay sa ating mga estudyante? Ngayon, pag tayo ay nagtapos, saan tayo empleyado? O saan tayo nagdinegosyo? Yan po ang napaka-importante. Yung mga pangailangan ng mga estudyante, marami po tayong mga NGOs na tumutulong. Gaya ng Rotary Club. Ay alam po ako ng isang Rotary Club of Quirino. Yung graduate po ng high school, valedictorian, sa Project 2 and 3 na paaralan. Anak po siya ng balot vendor at labandera. Problema lang, ang balot vendor ng tatay niya nasa gasaan. Kaya nawalan sila ng tulong. Ngunit, ang isang Rotary Club, yung scholar doon sa UP Los Baños, kumuha po siya ng industrial engineering. Tinulungan po siya from first year to fourth year. Kaya, wala pong problema. Kung talaga tayo ay committed na mag-aaral, marami pong tutulong. Ang ating pong concern, kung ano po ang mangyari sa ating mga alumni. Yung 1979 namin na homecoming, nag-meeting kami. 50% or more ng ating graduates ng UPPGH ay nasa Amerika. Kaya, ang tanong namin, kumusta ang ating homecoming? Ay baka hindi kami masyado makaka-attend. May sarili kaming homecoming sa December. At doon sa December, doon nagsisiuwian na nanggaling sa university sa US ang aming mga alumni. Kaya po sana, gusto ko po sana ipahiwatig doon sa ating mga gumagawa ng mga entrance. Sana po, malaman ng mga hundreds of applicants ng universidad na ang una-una pong gagawin ng ating magtapos sa ating university ay to serve our country. Kung yan po ay tanggap nila, baka siguro yung mga galing sa pribadong sektor mabawas-bawasan na. At yung mga gustong magsilbi, dadami na. At tayo ay talagang will be guaranteed that we have the bright minds of our country, the bright people, good leaders, also to serve our country. Yan lang po sana ang aking gustong imungkahi para po sana makakatulong tayo hindi lamang in getting good students for the university, but also to give future leaders and servants for our country. Maraming po salamat.
Okay, thank you. Tatanggap po ako ng dalawa pang katanungan before we allow our our speakers to respond. May isa lang and then I'll call that wait, may isa lang muna from Rizal, Sociology. Ang mga tanong niya para kay Director Gerald Franco. Do you have data showing how many % among the no-shows come from brackets A to E? Or how much budget does the OSSS get? How much is needed for OIC Gonzalo, for former OIC Richard Gonzalo? Third question, what is the rationale behind assigning only either bracket A or B for all those incoming UP students at the early stage of STFAP application process? This is also for former OIC Richard Gonzalo. And then we take the question of the student. Okay. Please state your name.
Ako po si Riz Lorenzo mula sa Department of Philosophy at Center for Nationalist Studies, CSWCD. Yung tanong ko po ay yung tanong ko po ay directed po sa lahat ng mga speaker at pwede pong sumagot din yung ating presidente, si President Pascual sa tanong. Yun po, tama yung sinabi ni Professor Richard Philip Gonzalo na hindi lamang STFAP ang problema, kundi isa lamang ito sa mga problema sa UP. Yun. Tama naman po yun, hindi naman natatali yung problema natin dito sa UP. Pero yung sistema mismo ng edukasyon dito sa UP at dito sa Pilipinas bilang may pagsusuri naman po ang Center for Nationalist Studies na sa edukasyon na dapat ang edukasyon ay makabansa, siyentipiko at pangmasa. Yun. Yung tanong ko po, ay sagot ko dun sa bakit STFAP ay mahirap mag-apply sa STFAP. Dahil hindi kikita ang gobyerno dito. Yan. Dahil, at sa naman, sa bakit madali yung bracket B, bracket A certification, yan. Dahil, sure na may kikitain yung gobyerno sa bracket B, bracket A, 1,000 per unit at 1,500 per unit. At the same time, bakit madaling mag-apply sa loan. Yan. Eh, sigurado naman po na liable yung nag-apply ng loan na magbayad ng bayad niya sa loan. Yan. So, etong mga sistemang ito, yan, ay nagpapakita na yung UP ay nirarun. At the same time, yung STFAP ay ina-approve para kumita ng pera. At yun nga po yung sinabi ni President Pascual nung nakaraan. At yung tanong ko po sa kanila. Yung tanong ko po sa kanila, ang gobyerno ba dapat niraran para kumita ng pera at hindi maglingkod sa kanyang constituents o kanyang mga mamamayan? Yun po yung tanong ko.
Okay, thank you. We now give the floor to President Pascual to answer, and then to the rest of our resource speakers.
Wala pa akong sinasabi, meron akong sinabi earlier. Anyway, thank you for the question. I'll start with the last question because my name was mentioned. Okay. I think we need to explain very well how much it costs to earn an education in UP. Okay. And how much the students share in that cost. Based on our estimates, the cost of studying in UP can be measured roughly by the amount of tuition fee being charged by the best private high schools in the best private universities in the country, which rely fully on student tuition. Okay. How much does Ateneo charge? It's not 110,000 per year, it's 160,000 per year. Regent, Cleve. Ateneo, that much. LaSalle, 180,000 pesos per year because they are trimestral for those courses that don't require laboratories. And 210,000 per year if they require laboratories. So that's the measure of the full cost of quality education. I don't think we can deny, that Filipino youth can also get quality education from the private schools, particularly the leading private schools. Then that must, the cost of education in UP must not be far behind. But of course we know that subsidies are also being provided by our professors who are getting paid less than what teachers in LaSalle and Ateneo are getting paid. So pwede nating discount yun, And I admire, the members of the faculty of UP who continue to serve the university despite the situation. But I also know that some are able to cover some of those opportunity costs by doing significant consulting work and other activities. That's something we need to look at separately. So if we are to base the cost of UP education on the budget we're getting from the government, before the expected increase next year, the subsidy is roughly around 80,000 per year, pesos, 80,000 pesos per year. Okay. How much does an average student, so-called, pay in UP? According to Regent, Cleve, it's what, 19,000? Average fees being paid by UP students. Did you give that figure? You gave a 19,000 pesos average tuition cost, okay, from UP student. But I really don't like, this notion of an average, because what's average, it doesn't represent reality, especially in a society like ours, where the income spread is so wide. You have very rich and very poor. So the moment you come to an average, you can't even put a handle or a face to that average. That average, the person who pays that average tuition does not exist in our society. So let's not talk about averages, because the averages don't mean anything. In the context of UP, which follows a socialized tuition fee structure, which is designed to represent the ability to pay of different income classes in our society. Okay, but there are issues there, and I will go to that later on. Okay. So when a comment is made that a student is asked to pay a bracket A or a bracket B in tuition because the government will earn from the student, that doesn't appreciate the fact that the cost of UP education is much, much higher than the actual tuition fee being paid by those who pay in UP. Those students who pay, but not everybody pays. Scholars don't pay. Those in bracket E, E1 and E2 don't pay any tuition at all. Okay? Well, we're all in these problems together. That's something I'd like to emphasize. When I got into UP last year, these are the problems, okay, that hit me in the face right away. Okay? And we still have the problems because I found out also that it's so difficult to introduce reforms in UP. Okay? I was trying to computerize the whole of UP so we can address some of the problems you're raising here. Like faster decision on STFAP. Okay? And many other problems you're encountering, like loan problems, in terms of why do you have to borrow when in fact we can have an installment payment plan. Okay? For students whose parents are earning money on a monthly basis, so you have to mimic or to reflect, the cash flow of the family with the payment requirement of UP. But it's not easy, We were trying to get a bank to provide a credit card facility. It was there when I came in. Up to now, there's still an issue. Okay? Like EUP, for example. All of a sudden, the issue of consultation came about, But why are we implementing UP without having consulted the whole community, When in fact, those affected have been consulted very frequently. But those are the issues we're encountering. It's not easy, okay? Because this is, after all, a university, and a public university at that. So you have to bear with my administration. We're all in this together. I came in inheriting the problems you're all raising now. These are not problems that my administration created. And I have lined up solutions, except that the solutions are not easy to implement. What are the solutions? Okay? I'm glad that many of you now recognize that STFAP is not the barrier to the entry of poor students to the university. It starts with UPCAT. Actually, it starts way beyond UPCAT, as Regent Cleve has highlighted. It goes back to the elementary schooling of the prospective UP students, the high school schooling. Okay? And, we talk as if, UP is so great that it can solve all these problems that have accumulated before a student applies for admission in UP. But we're trying. Okay? The field is level. What is not level, of course, are the capabilities and the preparations of those who are playing in the field. So what have we done? Okay? You must have heard the experiment done by Congressman Rufus Rodriguez, in his congressional district. What he did, and for those of you coming from the provinces, maybe you should follow up on this with your respective congressmen. He got the top graduating high school students in the public schools in his congressional district. He put them through an UPCAT review. He helped them apply for UPCAT. And for those who got admitted, he helped them with the expenses. Our average admission rate for those UPCAT takers is 15 to 18% each year. Okay. Congressman Rufo started, I think, with 124, a group of 124 graduating high school students about 3 years ago. And his UPCAT passing rate is double, almost double the national average. Out of 123 that he got from his public schools, more than 40 were admitted to UP. And when I say UP, I'm not talking of UP Diliman. Remember, the University of the Philippines is not just UP Diliman. Okay? We are one university with the other CUs. So more than 40 got admitted. So that's an average of, that's a passing rate of almost 30%, or more than 30%. Very, very good average. Now some other, I understand some other congressmen have copied this because I invited all congressmen, alumni of UP, to the Executive House, treated them to lunch, and asked Rufus Rodriguez to present this to them. I think some of them have picked this up. I don't have a report yet as to how many actually implemented the practice. But every nook and cranny in the Philippines is represented by a congressman in the legislature of the country. And each congressman receives, what do you call that? PDAF. Okay? That can be used to fund this kind of exercise. Okay? So if it can be done all throughout the country, people helping us identify the top public school graduates in each of the congressional districts in the country and helping these people prepare for the UPCAT and help them enroll later on, then at least the geographic representation of students in the country will be even than how it is now. Because most of our students now, I understand, based on the data that have been shown to me, are coming from Metro Manila and the big cities. Okay. What else have we tried to do? So that's one. Every time I talk to our alumni in the provinces, I tell them, promote UPCAT to the public students, so that public high school students. So because the more high school graduating students who take the UPCAT, the greater will be the number, who will be given admission. Unfortunately, I hope Director Franco would show the numbers about admitted students versus actually enrolled students. Can you show the numbers? Because this is very revealing. We're saying, I'm so tired, of hearing complaints based on assumptions, guesswork, because there are numbers to help us analyze the situation. So what I did, I requested the Office of Admission to tally by income brackets all the students who have been admitted, and for each bracket, how many of those students admitted actually enrolled. Okay? Gerald, yung admitted versus enrolled. No, this is very revealing, Well, I always hear, oh, the poor students cannot enroll in UP. They don't pursue their enrollment because they cannot afford. If you look at the data, you will show that regardless of the income bracket, okay, the percent enrollment revolve around that range. In fact, it's in bracket A, where the enrollment rate is much lower, compared to bracket E1. Look at bracket E1 and C. They have the highest percentage enrollment. And it doesn't matter, because there are various reasons why a student will not enroll. We have checked this out, not yet on a very organized fashion. But the son of a farmer, for example, even if he qualifies in UP, most likely that son of that farmer will not be allowed to go to a UP campus because he is needed on the farm. It's nothing to do with affordability. Okay? It has all to do with many other reasons. Look at the numbers. Okay? The first column here shows you, these are the enrollees already. On the right table, you will see the percent of those given admission who eventually enroll. Kita niyo ba yung number? Bracket A, only 53% of those admitted actually enrolled. Anong year to data na to, Director Franco? 2011. Okay? So latest. Look at bracket B. Doon kami ng konti. Bracket C, pinakamarami. Percentage-wise, D is also high. E1 is also high relative to B and A. Okay? And E2 also lower. It's not the lowest among the brackets. Okay? It just shows you that there are many reasons why a student does not, or an admitted student does not eventually enroll in UP. Finance is just one aspect. Okay. But we need a more detailed study to be able to disaggregate the data further. What else are we doing to be able to cast a wider net to get our students? We're trying to review the UPCAT test. Okay? And unfortunately, that's the reason I came here, because when I saw the description on the forum, it seems to have a misinterpretation of what we're trying to do. So it says here, when it equated, what more, it aims to review and rationalize the UP college admission test to make it more aptitude-based rather than achievement-based. This ambivalence results in further marginalization of disadvantaged students who are granted privileged status in the UP chapter of 2008. In teasing out the above contrarieties, how can we define the goal of democratic access? Okay, unfortunately, aptitude-based test was equated with good high school education background, which is the exact opposite. It is the achievement-based test, that relies on what the student has learned in high school. It's the aptitude test that tests the native ability of the student, regardless of his high school background. And that's what we are trying to do in UPCAT. But I don't know who prepared this description of this forum, But this is wrong, It promotes, raises a criticism, a misplaced criticism of what we're trying to do. Okay? We're trying to make UPCAT aptitude-based precisely to remove the bias in favor of high school students coming from a strong high school background. But again, it is not easy. Okay? But that's one thing that we would like to do. Okay. Now, I'd like this opportunity also to give you the broader picture of public tertiary education. In the past, during my time, and maybe during the time of some of the more senior members of the audience, there was only one state university. That's why then, if you use the term state university, you were referring to UP. That's why when our UP men's basketball team, the members, if I see the members wearing a uniform that says State University, I told them, that that's already an obsolete name to use to refer to UP. Because there are now many state universities. What distinguishes UP now is that we are the national university. Okay? Now, in a setup where there are many state universities, UP no longer bears the sole burden of giving quality education to a good cross-section of our society. In fact, the burden of UP has shifted to its mandate to perform its unique and distinctive leadership in higher education. Okay? Our role now is really to lift the other public and private tertiary institutions in the country to a level that will approximate, if not reach, the same quality of education as what we provide in UP. That is our main mandate. That is our burden. Okay. In fact, if you will read our strategic plan, I want to shift UP to a different level, you know. And this is to make UP a research-intensive university and to increase the proportion of graduate students in the university so we can perform our leadership role in higher education. Because that is our bigger burden. How many students do we have here? Undergraduate? How many? 18, less than 50,000. I think around 48,000 or even less. How many students are there in all the public university? How many students are there in all the private university? Many, many more. How many can be considered as giving quality tertiary education? Very few. Okay? But EUP will partly solve this problem by enabling us to reach out to areas beyond the borders of the UP campuses through ICT. Okay? That's our burden. Okay? But still, we need UP to have an undergraduate program because we also have the mandate to produce leaders for our country. Not only leaders in government, but leaders in all disciplines. Okay? And leaders are not just coming from the high-income brackets of our society. Okay? Intellectual prowess is not measured by how much your parents earn. I came from a poor family. Okay? And I am where I am now because of my UP education. Because I was a scholar ng Bayan. I didn't spend for my own education. My family didn't spend for my own education. In fact, the allowance I got, I even shared with my siblings, you know. So they themselves can also finish here in UP. There are 5 of us, siblings, you know, who graduated from UP. Okay? That's why, you know, when you were talking about allowances, student Regent Cleve forgot that there is another drain on the allowance of the bracket E2 student, and that is the share that the parents get out of that allowance, you know, or the brother or the sister that would get the share of that allowance. That's a reality, you know. In fact, among our scholars, I was told, you know, it's the parents sometimes, you know, that are very eager and really following up the release of the allowance of their students. Okay. And there are some scholarships now that we have implemented recently that pay as much as 5,000 to 10,000 per month in monthly allowance. Okay. In selected courses. Okay. What else are we trying to do? The STFAP is a separate matter because you first have to be admitted to UP before we worry about financing your education. We are blind in our admission. When you apply, we don't look at, when we evaluate the UPCAT and come up with the UPCAT score, we don't look at the income of your family. Okay? We only look at the income when you are already being considered for financial assistance or for socialized tuition. Now, what are we doing? I don't know whether this has been discussed, but we inherited an UPCAT system that involves 14 pages of application form. A process that takes months to finish. What are we trying to implement now? It will be an UPCAT based on maths-reduced criteria. To as many as only what? 7? 9? 9 socio-economic indicators. Okay? That we will obtain alongside with the UPCAT application of an applicant. So those admitted will already know their bracket based on the 9 indicators. Okay? We just not really rely solely on the income of the family. Okay, going to the other part of the question about, this much maligned, so-called default bracket B, How many times will I explain, that UPCAT, STFAP is really designed to be a socialized tuition program. And it is based on, initially, family income, plus the other factors. And of course, there is an appeal process. Now, I found out when I came into UP, because you keep on saying, pamayaman na lang ang UP. When I came here, as president, I came from outside UP, although I have 2 degrees in UP, and I've spent a lot of time here as an alumni leader. I found out that our parking lots were bursting with student-driven vehicles, And then I look at the statistics. For the past so many years, how many were in bracket A? Less than 100. Okay? How many have applied for bar speakers? Thousands. So what did we do? We found out that there is this practice that those who would say they are bracket B, they can say so without submitting proof or without being subjected to investigation. Okay? How can that be, So we create a system that has a feature that will encourage our students to be dishonest, So we plug that, by saying, you declare your bracket B, you have to show proof, submitting your income bracket. And what was the result? Okay? We apply this for incoming freshmen. From less than, 10% or even less, saying the bracket A, the incoming freshmen, last year, how many declared that they're bracket B? More than 50%. Okay. That shows you really, marami na talagang mayaman. But that's not our doing, Because we are the passive receiving end of those who apply. We're blind, when it comes to the socio-economic background of the student. We simply look at the result of the UPCAT and the high school grades. Okay? The fact that that is so, is something we have to accept and find out why. Okay? Some of the reasons were mentioned. Not many graduating high school students from public schools are applying for UPCAT. Maybe that's true. Okay? And maybe those, we don't have the statistics yet, but those who apply, except those coming from science high schools, the chances of passing will not be that great. I have yet to get the tally of how many would, because we have the tally of all students with income classes. We can tally all the applications against those who are given admission. I don't have the report yet of the admission office on this. To find out whether in fact the poor, because this is just an assumption, remember, we're just taking this as if it's fact, that the poor students are less competitive than the rich students, For all we know, that's the case because there are more students coming from private high schools that are applying. Okay? So, please, don't take as facts those that are not supported by evidence. Okay? We're just assuming, that those coming from private schools have a greater chance. We have anecdotal evidence because we have looked at individual high schools. Would you know that, or did you know that our own UP high school graduates, or those who take UPCAT from among our UP high school graduates, have a lesser passing rate than those who took UPCAT from Ateneo High School? Is that correct? That's I remember. I remember having seen that report. Okay, is it because UP High School is a public school? Maybe not. I don't. It's hard to explain. We need a more incisive study to answer this. So, I'm glad I came. I heard many of the observations, especially in the presentation of our student Regent. The questions are also revealing in terms of how our students look at the situation. But I'd like to highlight, again, emphasize, we are all in this together. This is not a problem that we created. This is not a problem that you created. This is a problem that's falling into our lap, and we have to help each other solve this problem. In fact, there is a problem, because we have to look at the evidence, okay, and see, kamukha nun, ilan pa talaga ang kumukuha ng UPCAT from public high school, ilan ang pumapasa, ilan ang kumukuha from private school, ilan ang pumapasa. Wala pa yung data na yun, hinihintay ko pa. Okay. Napakahirap din dito nga pala ng data, Yung EUPs will try to solve this so that you will have a single source of truth in the UP system. Kasi kung iba ang tatanungin ko, ibang data binibigay sa akin. So, we'll make sure that we have single source of truth. So when we decide, alam natin that we are attacking the problem at the roots. Okay? I'm with you. Okay? But please, huwag natin problemahin yung mga hindi pinoproblema nung nagbabayad. Yung mga nasa bracket A, wala naman nagko-complain Bakit natin pinoproblema yon? Okay? Yung nasa bracket B, ilan ang nagko-complain? Let's focus on where the problem is. Let's not talk of average. You keep on highlighting the average cost of studying in UP without pointing out the fact that if you're from a poor family, you can study in UP for free. And if you're in bracket E2, you'll be given an allowance. And what are we trying to do? We're reviewing the brackets in the STFAP. Okay? Baka nga yung tinatawag nating ngayon na bracket D, baka dapat yun, poor na yun. Pero yung sabi nga ni Student Regent, if we have to rely on the government guidelines, lahat tayo dito, rich. Kasi lahat, at least yung mga nasa iyo, mayroong allowance, di ba? Kaya nga, we have to set our own. Kaya dito naman, kinakatulong natin si Vice President Lisa Gonzales, kasi siya ang expert sa mga, siya yung mga kinukonsulta ng mga private companies sa marketing nila. Kung tinatarget ng product, middle income, siya yung nag-identify. Without asking the income of the family, based on certain indicators na identify nila na ito, middle income. And so on. So, okay, ginawa natin yun sa STPAP. We'll speed it up. We will remove the burden na yung ka-enroll mo pa lang, freshman ka, nagkakandala pa ka na mag-apply ng STPAP o mag-appeal doon sa OSSS. Hindi tama yun. Sabi ko nga doon sa mga ibang senior naman, instead of complaining, tulungan nyo na yung mga freshmen na pumapasok na mag-apply sila ng tama. But hopefully, mahabol natin yung change sa Board of Regents meeting sa December 4. Hindi ko alam kung matatapos ninyo yung proposal. Ang proposal na natin, yung i-adapt yung lesser indicators para mabilis ang processing ng STPAC. Siguro yung review ng brackets will come later. Masyadong contentious yun eh. Ano, dito, hirap pag-introduce ng change kahit na favorable sa students. Ano? May palaging nakikita ang ibang angle eh. Okay? Pero ang intention natin to broaden the range ng E1 and E2. Okay? And maybe yung nasa A, itaas pa yung, kasi ang cut-off ngayon to be A, 1 million, ano? Yung kaibigan mo, tumawag sa akin. Sabi niya, Fred, di ba yung anak kong nasa college? Sabi, anak ka ng marami. Of course, ang kita ko more than 1 million, pero sabay-sabay na nag-aaral yan, ito ang binabayad ko. Para karamihan sa kanila, nasa UP, ano? Based on her income alone, bracket A siya, ano? Pero susuma mo nga yun. Pero yun na nga, sabi natin. Kaya nga yung RH bill, pinipilit natin ipasa. But anyway, hirap nga yung ganon. So may mga ibang kailangan tingnan indicators. Ano? We will try to capture yung mga ganong nuances sa'yo. Tapos yung allowance. Nakikinig naman tayo, no? Kung makano sinabi ni Student Regent, yung magkano yung allowance ngayon ng STPAC bracket E1, E2? 12,000 per semester. So roughly mga 3,000 a month yan, ano? Tama pa ba yan, ano? Alam natin, ang minimum wage, magkano na ngayon? 400, oh. So, yun. Tsaka isa pang pagbabago na i-introduce natin, dahil nga, pag tinaas natin yan, baka ang makinabang, hindi yung estudyante, no? Pag sabihin nung magulang, oy, laki na ng allowance mo, magkano ba akin dyan, no? So, yung mga ibang gastusin, bibigay natin in kind, no? By voucher or coupon sa meals, sa dormitory. Para sigurado that the students are given the proper environment in the dormitory and proper nutrition, no? Para hindi siya kumakain. Hindi kinakain sa mo, hindi ko nakakuha yun. Kamatis. Kamatis. Oh. Pero hindi bago yan, ha? Nung estudyante pa lang ako, makakasabay ko. Kasi no, nung sa may cafeteria pa sa Vincent's Hall, unlimited ang rice. So order lang ng rice yun, tsaka may hihingi na lang ng sabaw. So hindi naman bago yan, ano? Doon mo matetest talaga ang ability ng student. Ang number one, magkikwento sa inyo yan, our own Philippine Vice President, Vice President Jojo Binay. His experience as a student, as a college student in UP, and how he survived, you know. Okay? So, hindi bago yan. Ngayon, kung yung mga sinabi nyo, sumuko ka agad, hindi nag-enroll, eh hindi siguro yun ang kailangan nating estudyante dito. Ha? Kailangan nating estudyante, yung pupumilit. Yun ang mga kailangan nating leaders. Okay? Pero yung ate, you know, initial sign of difficulty, tiklop na, sorry, that's not the kind of student we want in UP. Gusto natin yung paglalaban, yung karapatan niya. Okay? So yun ang mga nagsusurvive. Yun ang mga gusto natin i-train dito sa UP para lalo silang mapahusay at maging leader ng ating bansa. Okay? So, yun lang muna. Sorry, marami ko sinaklaw na oras. Pero yung ano nga, yung access, meron na yan eh. Sa STPAC, meron tayong palugit, ano? Para dun sa gaming from public high school. Sama ba yun? Director Gerald. Meron tayong palugit, ano? Yung galing sa mga regions. Meron tayo yan. So, we have a direct response dun sa provision ng charter natin. Pero yun na nga, you have to look at the charter in its full context. Okay? Mahirap mag-isolate ng mga provisions and just hammer on that without looking at the bigger picture, at the bigger role of UP as the national university. Thank you.
Okay, maraming salamat President Pascual for all those clarifications. We are indeed honored by your presence today. So may we hear from Director Franco at saka Gonzalo dun sa mga tanong ng mga audience.
Well, I think the tables I showed earlier and that President Pascual asked me to show was in direct response to the query earlier about the percentages of those belonging to certain brackets enrolling in the university. And I've already mentioned this also during my talk regarding yung lumalabas dun sa data, dun sa analysis nga na those who belong dun sa bracket 3, mas marami silang options. Kaya dun ang pinakamataas talaga na tinatawag namin no-show. Sila yung mga hindi nag-enroll. Pero yung nandun sa gitna, yung mga sa C, sila yung talagang nag-enroll na dito, yung pinakamataas. And even those belonging dun sa E, medyo nandun sila sa gitna.
Okay. Regarding dun sa required budget for the supposed new STFAP, it will actually depend on the benefits. Again, yung forecast nito will depend on the freshmen, the number of freshmen, and then their estimated bracket assignments before we could assign. Plus yung ipipeg na benefits nila. Ganito kasi yung mangyayari sa STFAP, it will be tied up with EUP. So most of its activities will be streamlined. Ibig sabihin, hindi na sila magiging manual. Pero ang magiging concern kasi dito sa budget natin, sa government budgeting kasi, kapag nakapag-appropriate ka ng amount sa, let's say, sa account A, at ito yung purpose of, hindi ka na pwedeng hindi ka basta-basta pwedeng mag-reprogram. So, sa ngayon pa lang, kailangan namin mag-determine kung saan nga ba, ano nga ba siya. Is it an MOOE? Anong klaseng account ba siya? A, D, saan ba siya? Ifi-finance through GF or RF? So, yun yung mga details na kailangan pagtignan. With regards to bakit A and B muna yung nalalaman during the early stages ng STFAP, yun kasi yun yung madaling determine. Yun yung pinakamadaling determine. Kasi, ang cut-off mo lang is 1 million. If you belong to the dun sa millionaire class, definitely A ka na. Walang question na doon. Okay? If you belong to B or lower, dapat below 1 million ka na. And then, if you're lower than B, probably C, D, E1 or E2, then you have to submit additional documents. Mas mahirap, ganito yun Lahat na yan, requirement yan dapat para makakuha ng bracket. Pero, meron yung mga requirements na pwede na para sa ilang brackets, A and B, sapat ang ITR. Kasi imagine nyo na lang, kung lahat ng requirements, kailangan i-fulfill, mahirap. So, by stages ang pagbibigay ng requirements. So, unti-unti muna. So, una, ITR. Then, kapag nag-qualify ka na, kapag gusto mo na yung bracket mo, okay ka na. Kapag hindi pa, supporting documents. Kapag okay ka na doon, send yung bracket na yan. Pero kung hindi pa, then sabi ka na appeal letter, tsaka yung home visit mo, di kaya pictures, then process ulit. So, ganun siya. Hindi yung lahat ipapa-require sa'yo. Mas mahirap yun sa estudyante. So, kahit na ganun pa rin yung system, mahirap pa rin dahil nasa early stages pa rin talaga yung pag-determine mo ng pag-verify mo kung tama nga ba yung bracket na ibibigay. Which is why we're trying to change that so that yung verification process will come in later after na pag-assignment ng bracket through the new bracket assignment process tsaka yung bracket procedures based on 9 clusters plus another proxy variable which was determined during one of our meetings. Doon pa lang ma-determine muna and then medyo corrective na yung mangyayari after na na-enjoy ng student. Okay? So, ito.
Okay. I think we have one more question from the participant.
Pero parang hindi na-address dun sa issue na raised. Yung, ano yung tinuturo natin dito sa UP? Okay. Ako naniniwala na that as the national university, we have to develop our own vision, our Philippine vision of development for our country. Hindi yung nakabase sa mga napag-aralan natin sa ibang bansa. Without forgetting the fact that we are part of a globalized world. Kailangan natin sariling theory. Yun nga hindi ko nakikita pa dito sa UP. Na yung mga professor natin mag-develop ng Filipino vision of development. Yung tingin natin na dapat maging pagbasihan ng mga polisiya na susundin ng ating gobyerno sa pagpapaunlad ng ating bansa.
Okay.
Meron po akong mga apat na tanong. Siguro hindi na po yung kasya para dun sa oras natin. Pero sabihin ko na rin po para, hindi po kasi mahalaga yung apat na tanong na gusto ko itanong para kahit hindi po masagot, maiwan po yan sa mga isip ng ibang mga speakers. Ako po pala si Victor Diliman, Miss Editor ko ng Philippine Collegian. Bali, una ko pong tanong tungkol po dun sa EEAS na admission system. Kung hindi pa ako nagkakamali, 2001 po nung nabago yung admission system from UPAI to EEAS. At ang parang guiding idea po ng EEAS ay magbigay nga po ng palugit para dun sa mga galing sa probinsya, galing sa mga public school. For a long time, after 2001, ang ratio po ng galing sa private school at galing sa public school ay mga 70-30 po. Pero nung naipasa po yung tuition increase noong 2007, naging 50-50 po siya. At since 2007, medyo ganun po yung trend. 50% na galing from public school, kasama na yung science high school, 50% galing sa private school. So, lumalabas po na parang mukhang hindi po nagagawa ng EEAS yung goal niya na bigyan niya ng mas chance yung mga galing sa public school para makapasok sa UP. Kasi parang equal na yung demographic ng UP ngayon, 50%, 50%. So, sa tingin po ba natin, kasi yun yung research, parang yung question natin yung discussion, pangmayaman lang ba yung UP? Sa tingin po ba natin dapat na i-review ulit yung admission system para mas bigyan ng chance yung mga galing sa public school na makapasok ng UP? Para siguro, hindi ko po alam kung dapat ibalik sa 70-30, pero mas bigyan ng pagkakataon sila na makapasok ng universidad. Pangalawa po, sinabi niyo po kanina na 120,000 po yung cost yung actual cost ng pag-aaral sa UP. 80,000 ay subsidized by the government. Tama po ba? Pero siguro po para mas malaki pa din yung subsidy na galing sa gobyerno para sa actual cost ng pag-aaral sa UP. Ano po ba yung ideal na ratio? Magkano po ba talaga dapat yung subsidized ng gobyerno at magkano dapat na pinapasa ng estudyante? Kasi po sa collegial, ang tindig po namin ay dapat ang edukasyon sa UP ay dapat subsidized talaga ng gobyerno. So, inline po doon, parang ano po ba yung pag humaharap po tayo sa gobyerno at naglalabi tayo for greater subsidy, ano po ba yung sinasabi natin sa kanila? Magkano po ba yung dapat na binibigay nilang subsidy para sa edukasyon ng taga-UP? Pangatlo po, sabi niyo po kanina, meron po, parang isa rin po sa duty ng UP ay leadership. Siguro po maging huwaran para sa mga state universities and colleges. So, ayon po sa ARFR, dun sa Public Higher Education Reform ni President Aquino, isa po sa mga nakalagay dun ay yung parang yung STFAP ay magiging huwaran para sa yung mga state SUCs. So sa tingin niyo po ba, given the current state of STFAP, kampante po ba tayo sa kakayahan ng STFAP na maging efficient in another context, hindi po sa UP, kunyari sa PUP o sa ibang mga SUCs? At pang-apat po, yung tukol dun sa AUP. Meron na po ba tayong parang konkretong study na parang nag-investigate kung ano talaga yung kailangan ng UP at ito yung tinutugunan ito ng EUP. More specifically po, may konkreto na po bang parang pag-aaral kung paano mapapadali ng ano po yung mga concrete na parts ng EUP na mapapadali niya yung STFAP. Ayun. So, yun lang po. Salamat.
Mukhang akong tinutukoy ng kaibigan sa Philippine Collegian. Okay, yung palugit, hindi ko alam yung data na binigay mo, buti na ibigay mo yun. Kita natin yun. Kung talagang walang naging epekto yung palugit, ito ba yun? Director Franco?
Do sa EAS, ini-implement yung palugit, and medyo matagal na rin naman ito. I think it's 1999, if I'm not mistaken, na yung EEAS, no, yung tinatawag nating Excellence Equity Admission System, ano. So binibigyan natin ng palugit yung mga nanggagaling sa mga public high schools, ano, kasi sila yung na-identify natin na disadvantage, ano. And then kasama din dito yung mga members ng mga cultural minorities and the likes, ano. Kaya lang wala naman tayo talagang ratio na siniset na let's say talagang dapat ang kuhanin natin ay 70% na galing, let's say, sa public school, and then 30% lang yung sa private high schools, ano. But right now, ano, ang lumalabas na percentage nga ay yung 50-50 halos, ano. And siguro if the perceptions na hindi na siguro kailangan mas mataas pa dito yung percentage ng sa nanggagaling sa mga public schools, then meron namang mga continuous studies, ano, regarding yung effectivity nitong palugit, ano, kailangan bang taasan, no, or baka kailangan meron tayo lang i-tweak, ano, dun sa sistema na yon, ano, para tumaas lalo yung percentage ng mga nanggagaling sa public schools, ano. Pero kasi itong mga admission policies yan, yung admission policies talagang dinidecide yan ng mga university councils, yung mga faculty natin ultimately, no. So I think if meron sigurong enough faculties, ano, na naniniwala, faculty members, ano, na naniniwala na siguro talagang kailangan na bigyan natin ng taasan natin yung percentage, no, sa public schools, then we can approve yung let's say an increase, ano, dito sa palugit. Pero kailangan muna ng talaga masusing pag-aaral. Na-mention mo yung tungkol dun sa pagtaas ng tuition fee, ano. Ako naman personally, I believe na it does not have anything to do with that, ano, kasi nga dahil una yung identifying qualifiers, hindi mo muna tinitignan yung let's say capacity to pay naman ng estudyante, ano. So pwedeng meron lang coincidence kung sakali, ano, na at this point in time tumaas yung ratio siguro by a certain percentage, no, galing sa mga private schools, ano, but I don't know if it's really related sa pagtaas ng tuition fee. What I can say is that it was during this time na may nagkaroon din naman ng tweaking dito sa EEAS system natin, and this is the time also when particularly in UP Diliman, ano, nag-shift tayo from yung na-mention mo upay from the UPG. No? But we need to study that further. No? Do we really need to come up with, let's say, specific ratio, no, na kailangan ganito yung public schools?